Joining me today to chat is Aaron Fisher, who is founder and CEO of the Atlanta Rescue Dog Cafe. Aaron and I had the pleasure of meeting at Chomp and Stomp, I believe, which hopefully, we get one of those again sometime. And you had a booth there talking about your dog rescue cafe, and those words together definitely intrigued me. And so, Aaron, maybe you could tell a little bit about your mission and what the organization does.
The Atlanta Rescue Dog Cafe is a humane education nonprofit. Despite the name, we don't take in or adopt out animals, and there's no physical cafe yet. That's one of our goals. But what our whole mission is to promote positive human-animal interactions, encourage safe and responsible pet care, and teach the community, especially children, how to be safe and kind to pets, and then the measures that we can take to prevent animals from ever becoming rescues and entering our area's already overcrowded shelters in the first place. And the goal with that is by reducing intake, thereby hopefully reducing euthanasia rates in local shelters as well.
Yeah, and a lot of this, as you're starting to describe, has to deal with education and comfort. And so tell me a little bit more about your programs and what you've done historically as an organization.
We've been around for just over 2 years. And in that time, we've reached more than 12,000 participants in our humane education programs. Almost 90% are children, and more than 40% of our program participants are from Title I schools and underserved communities. We have programs for the youngest of children from 3 to 5 years old, and that program is called May I Pet Your Dog, where we do a reading to kids from a book called May I Pet Your Dog, which is right in the background. And we have volunteers who bring in certified therapy dogs. So while we're reading a story to the kids are practicing coming up and asking the owner handler, may I please pet your dog, learning how to behave around strange or unfamiliar dogs, to always ask if they can pet before they do so, and then the measures we can take to prevent dog bites in the first place. One of our other very popular programs is called our One Leash Project. And with that, we teach our program participants how to make dog leashes out of repurposed climbing rope. Since we started this program, we've kept more than 3,100 pounds of material out of landfills. And then what we do with the leashes is we provide them for free to first responders, police officers, and firefighters, whom we train how to secure loose pets in emergencies and reunite the animals with their families so that they don't wind up in a shelter or stay on the streets where they could, get scared and bite someone accidentally. Another one of our programs is our careers in animal welfare. So often, so many people say, I love animals, I want to be a veterinarian. That's the only thing that comes to mind. When in actuality, getting into veterinary school is actually much harder than it is to get into medical school just by sheer numbers. So what we try to do is introduce our program participants from as young as fourth grade all the way up through college, graduate school, adults in the community, to consider the many fields that they can get into where they're working with and on behalf of pets, but not necessarily having to go the veterinary route. And then we have a whole host of other programs that we offer as well. We have currently 8 different programs that we offer that span all age ranges.
And it's great, even though you don't necessarily have a brick and mortar or a space, your organization is a place or group to gather with to gain insight and understanding, whether it be from these somewhat larger programs to even helping people out individually with understanding animals, understanding the people and the life that goes on around them and how they all come together, which I think is really great. And I know you're very proactive in doing that, and being in a lot of these events and programs have involved groups. So how is that taking an effect for you right now as an organization?
We purposely call ourselves Atlanta Rescue Dog Cafe because everyone thinks about rescue on the back end once a pet actually becomes a rescue. Our focus is on preventing pets from becoming rescues in the first place. And the cafe, as you mentioned, is not just a place where you get a cup of coffee, but it's also a place where conversation and community come together. And so that's what we provide, a place for conversation, and we hope to generate and change the conversation for how we think about rescue. So what the current pandemic has forced us to do is reconsider our offerings, not just what we're offering, but how we're offering them. So because right now we're mostly limited from doing the in-person interactions at the festivals, the 5Ks, the farmers markets, and go into the schools and the Boys and Girls Clubs and the Scout troops and the summer camps, because let's face it, they're not happening right now. We've moved a lot of our programs online. So we've been delivering a number of our programs virtually. Schools are still, in session. There will be some summer camps going on. So what we try to do is offer those programs online. We've also tried to step up our social media game and maintaining a regular and hopefully forward-leaning presence where we're getting the message out about what we can be doing right now. Because let's face it, one of the things that's happened with the coronavirus is that so many people have adopted or fostered animals. But so often with fostering or adopting, rarely are they given the educational resources for how to integrate their pet into their family, what to teach their children about how to walk a dog on a leash, why you shouldn't interrupt a cat or dog when it's eating, sleeping, drinking, because so often that's when children are curious, they get in the dog's way. When it's eating, the dog turns on and snaps at the child, and then the parents return the animal to the shelter saying the dog isn't child friendly, when in fact that's not the case. So if we can provide that source of education virtually now to so many of the people who have been so kind to open their hearts and their homes to new animals during this time, hopefully we're going to encourage them to keep the pets so that they become their forever homes rather than return them at the end of this pandemic. One of our big messages is, wouldn't it be great if someone opened up an animal shelter and there were no homeless pets to go in? That's the goal. Rescue prevention, rather than dealing with pets once they become rescues. So just because we can't deliver our programs in person right now, doesn't mean we still can't get our message out.
Tell me more, though, about getting that message out and having to use virtual and online tools to do that. Have you had to adjust obviously, if you're not actually there with the people, there's some things that maybe don't translate as well, but how have you adjusted or not how you present these programs and information?
Sure. So like everyone else in this situation right now, there is no playbook. None of us have been in this situation before, whether you're a brick and mortar company, a nonprofit that doesn't have a physical space. We're all trying to figure this out. So we've tried to step up our social media game, becoming as creative as we possibly can. Also, we send out a newsletter about once every month or every 3 weeks or so, encouraging people to make donations, to think about what they can do to help pets in need, how to integrate the new pets into their family or maintain a healthy balance with their pets in their homes, and what they can do to encourage their children to have healthy, safe, positive relationships with their animals. But naturally, it's, let's face it, not the same, because when you're not able to deliver a program in person, we can't bring our amazing teams of volunteers with their certified therapy dogs into the schools and into the summer camps, which is such a big part of who we are, what we do, and how we deliver our programs, which we feel really distinguishes us from so many other rescue organizations, because so many rescue organizations focus on taking in, adopting out, spaying and neutering, vaccinating, microchipping, you name it. We hope to be able to continue to deliver the educational content despite not having that physical space and not having that opportunity to engage face to face with people in person.
It's learning as we go, right? And everything around us is changing with what we know about coronavirus and how we all interact with it. So we're having to continually adapt, right? And so as you're continuing to figure that out, as kind of a more grand scale, as a nonprofit, how have you seen this impacted to that area?
We've been really, really lucky in many ways because we don't have a brick and mortar space, because we try to keep our overhead really, really low. We've been able to keep our cash reserves in place. And what that means is we don't have the same expenses. And that's really put us in a good position to hopefully ride this out, for the foreseeable future. But at the same time, it's had a tremendously negative impact on our ability to meet with the public, to get the message out about who we are, what we do, to talk to people at those large scale events like the Chomp and Stomp where we met, where there are almost 50 to 60,000 people that come out, and we have an opportunity to interact with thousands of people in just an 8-hour day, to sell the t-shirts that we have, to take donations for the leashes that don't go to first responders. to sign people up for a newsletter, to meet with teachers and principals and scout leaders and youth group leaders who then want to bring us into their programs. So it's had a tremendous impact on our ability to write grants, to solicit donations, to do fundraising in person. So it's impacted us just like this situation is impacting so many organizations and for-profit businesses, especially if, even though we're a 501c3 nonprofit, if you're an organization that's not directly focused on COVID-related responses right now, it's really hard. It really is that's a simple fact.
So, as an organization, if people still wanted to help or get involved, are there ways and things people can do?
First and foremost, people can donate at therescuedogcafe.org. That always helps because while we've worked with almost 12,000 people in under 2 years. 90%, like I said, are children. More than 40% are Title I schools in underserved communities. We've never turned down a single request for our programs due to lack of funding. So that helps to underwrite our programs to make them available to everyone regardless of needs. In addition, people can always volunteer with us if someone has a special skill set, like yourself, for example, and helping us to get the message out about who we are and what we do virtually like this, or can assist us with our social media presence. That's always tremendously helpful. If people have a pet, especially a dog in their life right now, that they want to work on training to become a therapy dog, they can do that basic obedience training right now. And then once we get through this and are on the other side of the pandemic, we can put them in touch with our trainers to become a certified therapy dog team so that they can then join us at the schools and the Boys and Girls Clubs and the camps and the scout troops to promote positive human animal interactions, and also show what we can do to have a wonderful relationship with our pets and teach the next generation to become animal welfare advocates and how to learn to behave around animals so that we don't get bitten, so that fewer pets wind up in shelters, and thereby we can help to reduce euthanasia rates.
That's great. I mean, I feel like there's so many good resources there that a lot of this can still be done even remotely. I guess, Aaron, through all this, is there been things that you've learned about yourself, about your business, about animals that are takeaways that maybe you didn't consider before, both in how thinking about things and how to plan and do what it is you do?
I think, like so many of us out there right now, we're learning to have to adapt, to develop a presence, to develop programs, a way of getting our word out there, our messaging that we never had to consider before. So, just for example, we had this great program, the One Leash Project that I was talking about. Right now, so many families, parents, even people who are just at home a little bored, who are looking for something to do, we've made our One Leash Project available as an at-home edition, where if people make a $50 donation, we send them the kit to make the dog leash themselves. We provide all the instructions. They also get a t-shirt. And then with every package that we send out to donors, we also make another leash available for free to police and firefighters. So we're continuing to fulfill and serve our mission just in a unique, different, up until this point, unthought of way. We're just continuously having to adapt, think about new, interesting, unique, and engaging ways of delivering our content and reaching our supporters and hopefully new supporters.
Do you see that you might operate your business a little differently as we come out of this, or and as we get back into society and start being around people again? Um, do you see differences that you're already thinking of making changes?
So we'll have to focus a lot more on the ability to deliver virtual programs, step up, like I was saying earlier, our social media presence, provide more engaging content, videos, things that I never really had to think of to the extent that we do now. Quite frankly, I do social media. We have to do it as an organization. It's not my favorite. I'd much rather be delivering content in person, whether it's at a program or at a festival or a farmer's market, where it's just so much fun to engage with the public, to meet their pets, to hear their stories about how important the pets are in their lives. But we're constantly now having to think about how we're going to be delivering content, run programs, do events on the other side of this. And so much is going to depend on how long this pandemic lasts, how comfortable the public's going to be, whether it's coming out to a large scale festival or schools reopening or not. So that's going to really change or dictate so much of what we do and how we're going to do it.
Aaron, tell me what differentiates your rescue organization from others out there.
One of the things that we talk about so often, which I didn't address during the Bradcast so far, is if you think about traditional shelters, regardless of the rescue organization, whether it's for a specific breed, whether it's for older dogs or cats and dogs, or a place that takes in every pet, or one that is a managed intake, which can say yes or no to the animals that come into their doors. The financial incentive for the organizations is always to show that they have the ability or the capacity to take in and adopt out more animals. For no organization is there ever an incentive to say, hey, look what we've done to reduce intake, to keep more pets in homes. So that's what really distinguishes Atlanta Rescue Dog Cafe from every other rescue organization and shelter out there, is that we focus on the front end of rescue. And it's really hard to measure impact when you say, look how many dogs or cats didn't go into a shelter this year. It would be kind of like a meteorologist saying, look how many tornadoes didn't happen. There's no way of being able to measure a non-event. Another thing that I think is really interesting is we're moving as a society more and more toward what's called the no-kill movement, which means 90% of the pets that come through a shelter's doors go to a loving forever home or another rescue. It means that 10% or fewer of the animals are euthanized for lack of space or for being there too long. But when you think about it, what it means also is that as more shelters move to becoming no-kill, what it also means is that the animals that are in their care cost that much more. Daily feeding costs, medical expenses that wouldn't have been undertaken previously. So our argument as an organization is it costs a lot less money if we focus on the prevention aspects of keeping the pets out of shelters than dealing with the animals once they become rescues and enter shelters. So that's really, I think, the game changer or the distinguishing factor between our organization. Oh, here comes my dog Jenny, and so many other organizations. It's that whole ounce of prevention, pound of pain approach. Let me let Jenny in just 1 second. Come here, Jenny girl. Come here, sweetie. Here comes my dog Jenny. You can probably see her fluffy tail in the background.
Aaron, this has been great. I think you've done a really good job at providing us some background information about the rescue and animal world, but also running a business and an organization that needs to find ways to still interact with so many different, not just people, but animals. 2- and 4-legged beings are affected by this. And I really appreciate your insight in joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Brad.